By 1917, Ahmedabad had emerged as a dominant industrial center. As the second-largest city in the Bombay Presidency, its textile mills generated significant profits under British colonial rule. This economic growth was interrupted in August 1917 by a severe plague outbreak that rapidly saturated the city. The epidemic killed nearly 10% of the local population. Panicked by the death toll, the surviving workforce began a mass exodus, fleeing Ahmedabad for the perceived safety of other regions. Mill owners faced a total production shutdown as their labor force vanished. To stabilize the workforce and prevent a complete industrial collapse, they introduced a high-stakes incentive, the plague bonus. This retention payment was substantial. In many mills, the bonus reached 80% of a worker's base salary. While the plague ravaged the city, a second crisis was underway. World War I disrupted global supply chains, placing a massive strain on resources. These disruptions led to runaway inflation across the Indian subcontinent, driving the daily cost of living to historic highs. The workers were now suspended between two economic extremes: an artificial wage increase triggered by a biological disaster and a crushing loss of purchasing power caused by a global war. The conflict began in earnest in January 1918. As the plague subsided, the mill owners moved immediately to cancel the 80% bonus. With inflation still soaring, workers could not survive on their old base pay. They demanded a 50% allowance to offset living costs. The mill owners countered with 20%, capping their offer far below survival requirements. Management ignored all further appeals for compromise, refusing to move beyond that 20% ceiling. A segment of the workforce attempted to strike in response, but the lack of centralized organization limited their impact. The 30% gap between the two sides represented a complete breakdown in the relationship between labor and capital. Resolving this deadlock would require an entirely new strategy. Anusuya Sadabai, a dedicated social worker, stepped in to champion the cause of the struggling laborers. Her advocacy placed her in direct opposition to the Mill Owners Association, which was led by her own brother, Ambalal Sadabai. Recognizing the personal and industrial complexities at play, she turned to M.K. Gandhi to serve as a neutral arbitrator. Gandhi initially attempted a formal resolution, creating a tribunal where 3 representatives from each side could negotiate a compromise. These negotiations collapsed on February 22, 1918, as bad faith between the parties made a voluntary settlement impossible. The mill owners responded by declaring a total lockout. They forced the workers into an ultimatum: accept the 20% offer or face permanent unemployment. This failure demonstrated that neither side could justify their numbers with anything more than an opinion. Gandhi saw this lack of evidence as the problem he needed to solve. Gandhi did not immediately call for renewed protest. Instead, he paused the agitation to conduct an exhaustive economic analysis of the industry. To find a mathematically just wage, he built a ledger of empirical data. He first audited the specific operational costs and the actual profit margins of the Ahmedabad mills. He then gathered comparative wage statistics from textile industries in Bombay to establish a regional standard for compensation. Next, he calculated how Britain's involvement in the World War was specifically impacting the local price of goods. Finally, he determined the absolute minimum amount of money a worker needed to provide food and shelter for their family. This synthesis provided a single, objectively defensible number. Gandhi calculated that a 35% wage hike was the only fair resolution for both parties. When the mill owners rejected this data-backed demand, Gandhi officially called for a strike, grounding the movement in this specific figure. By introducing this empirical framework, Gandhi transformed the labor dispute from a clash of opinions into a negotiation centered on verifiable economic data. The strike began with high levels of enthusiasm. The workers followed Gandhi with a sense of certainty, believing their demands would be met quickly. However, as the strike continued for many weeks without a resolution, the human cost began to outweigh the initial optimism. Without their daily wages or the previous plague bonus, the workers and their families faced the onset of genuine starvation. This extreme poverty shattered the workers' morale, making it difficult to maintain a united front against the mill owners. We see the impact of that desperation here. Laborers began breaking ranks, returning to the mills to accept the owner's 20% offer just to buy food. This mass departure threatened to dissolve the entire movement, as it proved that the workers' resolve was reaching its limit. Hunger had eclipsed the mill owners' resistance as the greatest threat to the strike, as it actively dismantled the workers' internal coordination. To halt this collapse, Gandhi declared a fast unto death, drastically increasing the strike stakes. Gandhi explicitly targeted the laborers with this fast, rather than using it as a moral weapon against the mill owners. He intended the fast as a lesson in internal discipline, viewing broken pledges as the primary obstacle to justice. The psychological impact was immediate. Workers felt a renewed obligation, and participation returned to 100% that day. With the workers' unity restored and the pressure of the fast mounting, the mill owners recognized that their ultimatum had failed. After only 3 days of Gandhi's fast, the owners capitulated and agreed to the 35% wage hike he had calculated. The 1918 Ahmedabad strike demonstrated that when objective economic data is combined with unbreakable internal discipline, it can overcome even the most entrenched industrial deadlocks.